Hello, good afternoon. As you can see, there's sun there. So welcome to Brothers of MGTOW. I'm your host, a brother of MGTOW, and this is episode 18. So I want to talk about a variety of topics related to the notion of feminism and specifically gender inequality. Okay, so first of all, I just want to apologize for posting this sort of a week later. So I noticed I'm supposed to upload these things every 3 to 4 days. I've just been swamped under some PhD work at the same time as well. I'm starved of YouTube content. I'm trying to think, what could I talk about? I don't want to post videos at a certain time limit and then start trying to talk about. I'll just start talking gibberish a lot of the time, which is not what I want. I would rather have sort of a cohesive topic to talk about. I mean, of course, I want to freestyle time to time. I just have the topic idea and then talk from there. But what I sort of wanted to do was what I like to have at least a basic plan of what I want to talk about. And really, in this video, I have kind of three talking points. I'll start from there. Okay. So, yeah, I, again, if anyone starts noticing, oh, why haven't you posted in so long? This is why. I'm not trying to deliberately avoid it, but I want to try to. I don't like trying to post in regular time intervals. I just like to post whenever I feel like I can come up with some decent content. And at the end of the day, it's all about quality over quantity. So that's why I'm trying. I'll most likely these days I'm probably going to be a bit less frequent with these videos. Okay. So maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. If I can get two in a week, so be it. But I'm more concerned about just trying to put good stuff on. Okay. I'm worrying about the quality of the content, more importantly. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna start off with this talking point. So the first talking point I want to talk about sort of what I did in the last two videos. So about this time last week, sorry, Sunday last week, not this last Sunday, but the Sunday before, I sort of interrupted my sort of regular timetable to sort of talk about the story of the some feminists who decided rather than call the police, she went to Facebook to describe an incident where where this man, later revealed to be autistic, was asking for high fives and failing to understand the meaning of no means no. She sort of put her feminist spin on things, and then there were people who came out against her and tried to, well, didn't try, but they revealed sort of the truth as to what happened. And sort of from there, things went south for the feminist movement, in general, for the feminists. Notice the S because Clementine Ford eventually got involved. Yes, that cancerous bitch. She eventually wrecked herself, but even up till now, she hasn't apologized for it. It's very interesting, nonetheless. So I sort of interrupt, and then I sort of talked about it briefly in the last video, this time last week. I just thought, you know, I wanted to do a MGTOW Thoughts episode, but I ended up just ranting about feminism half the time. I just sort of tried to debunk certain feminist talking points. So I think I was trying to. I can't remember what I did in that last video. Probably should look it up. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of. So I was talking about. Well, mainly my. I guess we can sort of do a quick review of my sort of feminist talking points. So the focus on today really is just talking about that the first just point that feminism isn't about equality. Okay, feminism is not a movement for equality. Egalitarianism is a movement for equality, and we're talking about equality of opportunity. Yeah, you know, a man and a woman or any person in society has the right to seek out the same opportunities. Full stop. In life, full stop. You know, they should never be on a different level as far as starting position is concerned. That's basically equality of opportunity, right? And such a movement like that is called egalitarianism. Now, what we have now, okay, especially with feminism, right? Initially, it was an egalitarian movement. Initially, you know, this first wave was all about suffrage movement, the suffragette movement, where women wanted the right to vote. The second wave was sort of about equality in the workplace, and so I mean the second wave was more of a general egalitarian movement. So, for example, equality in the workplace, equality in schools, and so on. You know, women should have the same rights as men to make a choice to either go to school, to work, to support a family, those kind of things. And sort of, well, obviously, you had radical leanings in that movement. That's when things sort of went south for feminism, and this is sort of where third wave feminism was born. This, and that totally changed the landscape of feminism, in my opinion, right? To a point where now, rather than seeking equality of opportunity, we look for equality of outcome. Hence the shift from sort of a right wing movement to something that is very, very left wing. You know, the idea that the myth that a woman should be paid as much as a man, even though she is. Okay. And also another example. Oh, that there is a rape culture in the West, which is proven to be a fallacy. If I'm not mistaken, the rape statistic in America is at around 7%, meaning nothing. Okay. And I guess the evidence for feminism not being a movement of equality. So the evidence for that is in the statistics. I remember Milo Yiannopoulos talking about this so in America, only 18% of American women identify themselves as feminists. Even though 85% of Americans believe in gender equality. Okay? So that's out of the 85% who believe in gender equality, only 18% identify themselves as feminists. It's even worse in America, in the UK. 92% of British women believe in believe in gender equality, but only 7% of them identify as feminists. Because, and I'm going to pull up a definition. I'm going to pull up definition quickly, but because these women are sort of starting to see very quickly that feminism is no longer a movement representing gender equality. So let me just give you this is the Google dictionary definition of feminism. It is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes. The key word is on the grounds. So feminism is about advocating women's rights, but they're doing it on the proviso or on the assumption that they are seeking equality of the sexes. Nowadays, so obviously the advocacy of women's rights, I can get behind that. So feminism is about women's rights, right? Of course, you got to uphold women's rights. So not just advocate for it, but you got to uphold these rights because you can have these rights taken away from you. But that's a story for another day, right? So what I'm trying to say now is, sorry, I'm just trying to get the right thoughts here. So, this afternoon, I got home from uni quite late, quite early today because I just felt a massive headache. Okay, so I was talking about feminism being a movement that advocates for women's rights, but they're doing it on the assumption that they are seeking gender equality. Now, the thing here is that's a big assumption to make because you don't know if these things, let's say, do promote gender equality. For example, the whole domestic violence issue, right? I know a lot of feminists start talking about how women are abused in the home. But what they don't realize is that men are also abused in the home. And they don't advocate for that, right? And this is why I always use this buzz question. If feminism was a movement for equality, okay, between genders, right? If it was, then why do we have this notion of men's right activism or men's right advocacy? Why do we have such a movement? If you claim to have the same rights as a man, right? Then why are men advocating for their own rights? If you wanted to be on the same level, why are men trying to fight? Why do men have their own movement advocating for that? Because if you're going to be on this level and they're on this level, you're going to keep going up, right? I'm going to leave that for the time being, but just have a think. Sorry, just first a little odd. So, and this sort of herein lies sort of what I wanted to talk about today, which is sort of gender inequality. Is it fair? I'm going to use the example of income inequality, right, and talk about why income inequality is fair. And then I'm going to tie that back to gender inequality and on why it's fair, right? There are similarities between this. So when we talk about income inequality, right? Let's suppose we have the notion of the rich and the notion of the poor. Okay. Obviously, it's more of a spectrum. I guess the fundamental difference is that income inequality is really a spectrum, whereas gender equality is a dichotomy. And don't even bring me up this shit about more than two genders, because there's only two genders, a man and a woman. Full stop. I don't want your liberal ideas being forced upon me. Okay? So let's just assume that when you have the notion of income inequality, you have the rich, you have the poor. Okay? Now, there are advantages to being rich. You obviously have money, and you can create these jobs, right? You can give these money to other people. That's how you keep the economy going, I guess. Right? There are obviously disadvantages of being poor. You don't have it, you're sort of struggling to make money, and you rely on the rich, right? But the advantage is the poor are willing to work for the rich in order to better their position. So as you can see, there's a significant advantage and disadvantage between, well, for the poor, but then for the rich, the disadvantage is they gotta, for the poor people that work for them, or they have to pay them, right? So there's a financial transaction that needs to go on in order to keep the economy going. So the poor works for the rich, the rich creates these jobs, the poor is willing to work for the rich, so they fill that job gap and they make a living for themselves. Right. So obviously the rich has to sacrifice their money, well, out of their goodwill, because they're the ones that employ the poor. And that's how the economy works. Is it fair? Yes, this is basic capitalism. The rich become better. Well, the poor becomes better, obviously, because they've got their own money, they're making money. At the same time, the rich are getting better. And that's because, not only have they created these goods and services, they can now sell these goods and services that the poor are making for the rich. They're providing it in order to get more money from themselves. Right? So there is a sort of fairness there. It's a win-win game. It's not a zero sum. Okay. Now, if you want more understanding of this, I was just watching what's his name, Yaron Brook. He's sort of an economist. Now he's the head of the Ayn Rand Institute. So Ayn Rand is an objectivist philosopher. She's someone who's quite deeply on the right. Okay. So she advocates sort of self-sufficiency in some way, to a point where the only way it can work is if you have a fully capitalist economy. Now, obviously, I've been talking junk for the last 5 minutes when it comes to MGTOW. So my question then is, how does that relate to gender inequality? Okay. So now in this case, we've got a pure dichotomy. So likewise with the rich and the poor, although that's a bit more of a spectrum, we have man, woman. Okay. The obviously advantage of being a man, you are more willing to earn money and become rich, right? And there are advantages of being a woman. So in this case, you have the ability to give birth to a child. You have better ability to nurture the home. And obviously there are disadvantages to being either gender. Now, when a man and a woman get together, right? What does a man seek? A man seeks love and companionship. A woman seeks security, money, and through that, right, a woman's position becomes better because she has security and money through a man who works, and a man gets love and companionship from a woman. Now we're all talking about this all in an idealistic sense. Okay, we just using theories to explain our points. Then sort of the next, you know, again when they come together, we can think of that as a transaction, in inverted commas transaction. Although MGTOW terms we always talk about as a financial transaction, which is essentially what marriage is. But so I'm just trying to get the right words for this. So in that the case, when a man and a woman idealistically get together, in this sense of inequality, so the sense of the gender inequality, they're both improving their positions. And that's really what male-female relationships are about. It's a win-win situation, idealistically. Obviously, in reality now, it's becoming much worse for the man. It's becoming this zero-sum game. And a lot of that is to do with this left-wing feminist movement, obviously, where women seek to have the same status as a man. And this sort of got me thinking, I'm listening to a few Yaron Brook videos over the last month or so. It got me thinking, really, is feminism even necessary in the first place? If we are still to maintain, if these, by the way, these things, the advantage of being a man, advantage of being a woman, these are all biological factors, or biological impulses. A woman seeks a man who provides her security and money. A man seeks an attractive woman for love and companionship, right? These are all just biological impulses. And I've just thought to think, when I talk about feminism, is it a necessary movement? Is gender equality not the best way to go? Is inequality a better way to go than gender equality? Now, obviously, this is a very radical idea that I sort of had, where this is so what the idea that I have is very traditionalistic, right? Obviously, it's much more complicated than just what I said in reality. But what I'm trying to say is that is this radical idea, this idea of going back to tradition, right? Will this improve the nature of male-female relationships? Okay, so I mean, me personally, this sort of, and I'd like to hear your comments on this. I'd like to make another video related to this. So this idea of, is gender inequality fair in terms of male-female relationships? You know, this idea of gender equality, where then a woman basically has all that she wants, except a man, right? So then what does she seek in a man? This is sort of a very complex topic for me. It's probably something I'll probably have to read into a bit more, right? So I guess I'll just finish off just talking about the facts that we have, So as I said, with the idea of gender inequality, there are advantages to being a man, there are advantages to being a woman. Likewise, there are disadvantages to being either gender. When we sort of think about the nature of male-female relationships as a transaction, then it is a win-win situation. It's a positive sum game. Now, suppose we had the idea of gender equality, right? Where now a woman can do the things that a man does, and a man can do what a woman does, right? Now, men are perfectly fine being alone. Biologically, they are stronger. This, I'll say smarter, although I think men generally have a lower IQ than women, but the variation in the IQ is much, much higher. So obviously with women, you have sort of, here's the average of a woman's IQ. Here's the average of a man's IQ, right? But the variation with the woman's IQ is quite small, let's say there. But the variation between a man's IQ is much larger. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is, sorry, I'm just gonna check this. I don't know if it's, sorry, I'm just reading something. Yeah, so the question I'm trying to, so obviously, as I said, the men are perfectly fine being alone. They're stronger, they're smarter, they're more self-sufficient. But a woman obviously is much weaker. She needs more security with the man. I guess she hasn't got that security. I mean, some do. Some career women, they're very secure with themselves. There's, I don't need a man. I need a man like a fish need a bicycle. Those feminist comments. But in general, women still need a man. In terms of happiness, and there's been research done in this, I probably should try to find quotes about this. A man will always get happier as he ages. A woman without a man, well, a man without a woman will always get happier as they age. A woman without a man will always become more miserable as they age. and that's really the issue that we have with this whole idea of gender equality. I don't, and this sort of, I'd like more information from you guys to sort of think. I'm on the fence right now between whether we should have gender equality or whether gender inequality is perfectly fine. I'm willing to lean towards the other side, that gender equality is totally fine. But I just feel like the achievements that we've had when it comes to gender equality for women and men, this egalitarian movement of second wave feminism, it's done so much good in society. We've allowed women the choice to do what they want just as much choice that a man does. So there is equality of opportunity. But at the same time, what we have is this notion of the fact that, this whole movement is driving the two genders apart. You know, I think a man's dependence on a woman sort of wanes. We're talking about life partners, by the way. We're not, it's a long-term relationship, not short-term. So, my issue is sort of at the same time, a man's dependence on a partner wanes, like what with the females, it tends to wane. It sort of drives us a bit further apart. So yeah, I'm kind of bummed out now. I've got to be somewhere else soon. Let me know what you think, guys. Is I mean, on one side, gender equality is perfectly fine. We should celebrate certain, the achievements that our foremothers, you know, have done to over the last 100 years to get to where we are. At least with equality of opportunity, we should celebrate that. But at the same time, we should also celebrate the fact that there are inherent disadvantages between men and women, right? And and at this, and from there, you know, we need to revert to their traditional values if we want to save the whole idea of male-female relationships. Okay, I'm gonna end it here. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and always don't forget MGTOW.